Well, fundamentally, at the moment in the VAT regime, there's a distinction made between whether you buy something domestically or whether you buy something cross-border. In the definitive regime, we will treat cross-border sales in the same way as domestic sales. So, to give you an example, at the moment, when you buy something cross-border, when you buy something domestically, you pay VAT, domestic sale. When the transaction is cross-border, that it is VAT exempt and the VAT is paid at the other end. Now that makes things very complicated, and that's where the fraud can happen, because if the sale is not declared or the trader disappears, then the VAT never arrives in the national treasury and you have a loss of revenue. So what we're trying to do is to harmonize the system so that domestic transactions and cross-border transactions are covered in the same way. In that way we create a level playing field. And we simplify life both for traders and for citizens because they know what they're dealing with, and we, I think, enhance significantly our chances of collecting more VAT receipts. Mm-hmm. You're right, VAT is an important issue for us. First of all, VAT is an important source of revenue for all of our member states. It's what helps to pay for our social services, our schools, our hospitals, our roads. And it's true that we also have a problem of VAT collection. And that there are VAT receipts which go uncollected, and this means that VAT rates are perhaps higher than they need to be because the people who are paying VAT are paying too much. So what we're trying to do in the package of proposals that we're preparing is to tighten up the legislation, to close the loopholes that are there, and to combat this problem of fraud. And to give you an idea of the quantum of fraud that we're talking about, we estimate that across the European Union we have a VAT fraud of about 50 billion euros a year. That's a very considerable sum of money that we think we can put to better use by closing down these loopholes and tightening up the legislation. Well, what we see is we produce each year a report that's called the VAT gap report, where we try to indicate member state by member state where the VAT gap is, and we can see that some member states perform better than others against that methodology. But fundamentally, we're not looking to do naming and shaming between the member states. What we're looking to do is to put in place robust legislation that's simple, that's efficient, and that member states can actually implement and operate, and that we close down these loopholes which enable people to avoid paying VAT or criminals to exploit the system and siphon money out of national treasuries for their own purposes. Well, you're right, all member states face a challenge in ensuring effective collection of VAT. I was talking with the colleagues in the Spanish Ministry today about their efforts to improve the situation, and I mean they're deploying an impressive range of methods to improve things with a new IT portal, SII, which will help ensure an effective collection of VAT and effective monitoring of what's being done. And I think that you need a mix of good legislation and good cooperation and exchange of information. A lot can be achieved by exchanging information and using the information that's exchanged to track down those zones where VAT is not being collected properly. I think in a sense your roaming example is relevant, but in a sense the proposal we're going to make for the definitive regime of VAT will be a bit like a roaming model. You will pay VAT in the country of destination of the goods. So that will simplify life. It will avoid you having to wonder about different VAT rates in different places. It will avoid VAT shopping, and it will simplify life, I think, for citizens and for businesses alike. So in that sense, I think it's both a step forward and a simplification. Well, I mean, we had very productive exchanges. It was in large part a fact-finding mission for me to hear from the colleagues about how they're organising things here in Spain, the new systems they're putting in place, in particular on the VAT side, this new SII system, which I think is a very positive development because it will be more real-time. It will enable them to bring together more information upstream rather than waiting downstream to go off and audit and control. They'll be able to control in real time, and I think that they're making very positive progress. Of course, it's a change, and change is always difficult and sometimes controversial. But I think it's a step in the right direction from what I heard this morning.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Do you think it would be effective enough? And of course, how to tackle this problem, and another thing I was checking to see people when you provide a service, an electrician or plumber or whatever, you know, and if you're doing some renovations at home, and they ask you, I mean, not everyone, of course, no, I mean, not the majority, but some people tend to.
No, it's not a problem only in Spain. Of course, the thing that we're most focused on is the cross-border aspect, because I mean, the internal Spanish problem is one thing, but it's the interfaces with the other member states, and that's where I think legislation can really help.
That's good. That's why the Commission is proposing legislation.
You got it?
And hopefully the European Parliament